Hey all, ex-art student here. I've been really into poppies lately, and I figured why not become one? So, let's try it. I cut out a bunch of leaves, because I figured that would be kind of cool for a neck piece. I didn't really know what I was doing. I can't really find the same image of a poppy online. I feel like they're all different, which is pretty crazy. But I've made art before about poppies, and I really like them, and I wanted to recreate this skull poppy design. I grabbed a bunch of computer paper and just painted it red. I figured that'd be a good first step. And then I added some yellow and white to add some dimension, a little bit of highlights, and I feel like sometimes flowers have multiple colors in them, and yellow is a good combo with red, so that was my plan. Also, I knew all of these were gonna get crinkled in the end, so it didn't matter the exact details, I just wanted a little bit of something. Painting all of these red was easy, but it did take a while for everything to dry. My whole living room was filled with red papers. It kind of made me think, why didn't I use red construction paper instead? But honestly, I really liked the lack of thickness, like how thin this paper was, because it was so easy to crunch and to cut and to shape the way that I wanted. If I used construction paper, it would have been too thick and firm. Once those papers were dry, I had to flip them over and start the process again on the other side. It was easy. It was a fun process to do and mindless, which was really nice. When everything was dry, it was time to cut the shapes of the petals. Like I mentioned earlier, I used a tutorial handmade by Sarah, and she does these giant flowers and a lot of paper flower art, which I find so inspiring, and I want my whole entire home to be covered in giant paper plants now. But I took her advice with how she cut the edges and folded this piece like a fan and crinkled it. It created a really good shape, especially for a poppy, because I feel like they're very wrinkly. Luckily, this was such an easy process. I really liked making these petals, and I kind of want to make more giant flowers. I struggled finding some fabric that would fit around my head and would stay there, so I just used this red ribbon. At least it would blend in with the petals. It wasn't the best for holding everything in place, but it got the job done, and I used this glass head in order to be my model to help with shaping and not worry about things laying down and breaking. Once everything was set, I hot glued the inside and attached each petal to the ribbon. I figured it would flop open around my face, and it could also close around my face as well. I don't know. I just thought it'd be cool to be the pollen center, like where all the seeds are. These petals were definitely long and floppy and hard to control, so they kind of got in the way, but once you were able to angle things a certain way, it wasn't too bad, but it was tough when you were trying to add more and more petals in. Most of the time when I'm doing these projects, I look at the thing that I'm making and I'm like, oh my god, I just spent all this time and it looks horrible. How am I going to put this on the internet? How am I going to be proud of this project? This is going to be a flop. But sometimes you get past that ugly stage and you're like, wow, things are actually looking good. It's starting to actually look like a flower and what I imagined in my head. But even better, it's different. It's real. Also, if you couldn't guess, I ran out of petals, so I had to create a few more just to fill in some spaces and to add a little bit more volume to certain parts of the headpiece. Lastly, I decided to add some pipe cleaners to the back of each petal. I figured it would kind of make it a little bit more stable and maybe help me move them around so they could look really cute and bendable. I don't know if it necessarily worked, but I do think it made it a little bit more stable because sometimes they were flopping totally behind me, so it looked like the wind was blowing in my face and there was no petal at all. Now we're back to the neck piece. I measured it out and sewed a button on. I figured this would be easier to glue all of the leaves on, so then I had a nice collar. I didn't want the leaves to be too boring, so I added some color changing paint to them just to add a little bit of a dimension. And honestly, I don't know what a true poppy leaf looked like because there were so many different ones that just added a little bit of detail to make it visually interesting. While the leaves were drying, I wanted to work on the stamen, so the thing that sticks out of the flower that has the pollen on it. I figured it'd be cute with the purple, because I didn't have black. Then I had all these cool golden beads, so I wrapped them around, and I figured that'd be a cute little pollen touch. I didn't want just yellow. It didn't go well with everything. It would have looked fine, but I think the gold brought it up a notch. And yes, these are definitely beads my grandma found at a garage sale somewhere. I love all the little knickknacks she finds for me in my art. Now wait to glue them all on. I did it on the inside where my face would be, so I was making sure that the tip of the pipe cleaner was covered with hot glue so it wouldn't stab my face as I put the piece on. I wound up just gluing a lot, also gluing my fingers to the piece as well multiple times. I had to rip all the glue off or rip my finger from the headpiece, but I'm happy with how it turned out, so it was totally worth all the adhesive. It was the final step where I had to work on the neck piece. I just simply glued all of the leaves on. I debated laminating them, but since the paper wasn't laminated for the petals, I didn't want a different texture and gloss to it. I want the main piece to be the petals. I finished the neck piece, but then I realized that you could not see it underneath all the petals, so I ripped it off and I glued it onto the very edge of the poppy petals. I glued Barrettes to the top of my piece because it kept falling off of my head. So I figured this might help stabilize it. Guys, it's done. Let's take a look at those close-up shots. We're finished, everyone. That was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Remember to check out my posting schedule, check me out on Etsy, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, subscribe, comment, like, all of those things if you would like. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next time. Thanks, bye!